not your first rodeo, but you, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but you were just down there testing and you're feeling a little sick.
That's right. I can tell you, I had my nose cauterized in East Palestine. I volunteer to do this and go in and help communities, so I'm not complaining, but I can really tell when there's something without my testing results. And something was just 48 hours ago, there were people coughing up blood, passing out. And I was, around the perimeter, and the people around me, we all had intense headaches, and, I got a sore throat. So I really feel for these people. Fortunately for me, I'm, back where I live and have relatively fresh air. But these people that are continuing to be inundated by the ongoing plume, I really feel for them.
So I'm not going to speculate, but there's been chlorine gas in the air for now over a week. Let me bring in the residents too, because I want to weave in everybody's stories with your experience down there, Scott. So Colin, you could just bring them in all at once. So we have Madelyn, you're down there in Conyers. Shena, I believe you live like 0.3 miles away.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm going to pronounce your name correctly. Is it Faati?
Faati the street is the whole, but it's Faati, yeah.
So I'm going to go by just proximity. Shena, tell me, when did you first know this was going on? You got dogs, you got kids, I believe?
Yes.
And what's been going on with your symptoms?
We took my little dog to the vet today, and she has bronchitis. And we've been getting the headaches. And when it first happened, we were home, and we were supposed to be evacuated, but nobody ever came and evacuated us. Because we're on Leicester Road, where they were actually talking about on their first news feed saying that they evacuated Leicester Road, but we were never evacuated. My stepmother and a friend seen the evacuation online and called me and woke me up. And we ended up having to rush out of the house. And we didn't know exactly what was going on, so we covered the dogs up and put them in their cage. And then came back just a couple hours later, kind of broke in and got our dogs back and took them to safety with us.
And is that common for your dog to have bronchitis, or this is something?
She's never had it before.
And what about your kids?
I got lucky, really lucky, that my son was at his friend's house when all of this happened, because he has asthma. And when he came back, we ended up in Butts County because we were evacuated and couldn't come home. So we were further enough away where he was good, but he started getting headaches today.
We know in East Palestine, vinyl chloride was the focus, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that was combusted. So here, I mean, really the only thing I see being communicated by the media or the EPA or Georgia's local FEMA is that they're looking into chlorine, but obviously there's a lot more chemicals that could have been created through that combustion, correct?
That is absolutely correct. And to put everything in perspective too, I want to set the background for this for some of the new listeners. I have an incredible scientific team around me of toxicologists, environmental scientists, and over 200 years of experience. My role on the team is being on the front lines to take the incoming missiles from plaintiffs' attorneys, from the EPA, and all the trolls, which I can handle. But I want to tell you, and that scientific team has had some discussions with EPA Region 4. This is not EPA Region 5, and I want to be very clear. Although, I've been a whistleblower with EPA Region 5 in East Palestine, I give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I want to put things in perspective from the scientific team today, that it has been verified that at least 12 million pounds of chlorine compound has burned, could be as high as 20 million. We don't know yet. East Palestine, as bad as it was 2 million pounds of chlorine compounds, including vinyl chloride, PVC.
And in English, to dummies like me, what does that mean to the average person? 12
Here's
million.
what it means. The products of incomplete combustion, dioxins, and cancer-causing benzene compounds that are called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Jordan, we were both involved in this. I never thought there'd be an event that is now 6 times greater of chlorine compound burn. And it's worse than that. All these chlorine compounds were sitting on plastic pallets. And there was styrene and styrofoam in the building. And all of these compounds, when they burn, create dioxins and a whole host of other chemicals, irrespective of the phosgene and all the other gas. And this is from Shena. Shena was the first one. She reached out to me and tested. You see this right here? This is a retane. This is what you see there. That's polystyrene. And this is picked up from her yard. This came basically right now 20 to 30 miles away. This was an invasion of people's airspace. You see that ash? I kept a lot of extra, and this got delivered to the lab on Tuesday. That is the polystyrene or styrene foam. It is a scientific fact. When that burns, it gives off dioxins. And unfortunately, the EPA said, we're only testing for asbestos. And of course there's no asbestos. And it just ties in. You can't find what you don't look for. Here we go again. But there are signs, I want to say, I give credit, there are signs that EPA Region 4 might end up being more transparent. They're not testing for dioxins yet. There's a sign that they may work with me and my team instead of launching a smear campaign like EPA Region 5 did. So I want to believe in the best of people until they prove otherwise. So let's give EPA Region 4 a chance. And I'm not here to demonize the EPA. I only hold the EPA accountable when they start their smear campaigns or we catch them lying and deceiving. So
let me ask Shena and Madelyn before I get to Faati the street. Has there been much communication, like in Conyers, between Georgia's version of FEMA, the EPA, on A, what is in the air, B, what are they testing for? Madelyn, you shook your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke at this point. We've been asking the same questions again and again and again as a community. They know what our questions are and they will not answer them. BioLab has not spoken publicly once. They've got a couple things on their website which amount to absolutely no information. And Rockdale County, where we have been pressing aggressively for answers, and we've started a community page. We're trying to get organized to put that pressure on them. But to date, we had finally yesterday, they allowed for citizens to ask questions, and continually the chairman danced around those questions. The long list that one of them has been answered.
Madelyn, before I move on, I just want to ask you, have you had symptoms? Has your family had symptoms?
Yes, I live by myself with pets. Luckily, my pets here have been okay to date. I had to go to urgent care on Wednesday, started coughing severely, very short of breath all the way through. I've had, it's dissipated a little bit since then, but I've also had severe headaches on and off for the last several days, spouts of being lightheaded. My horse is located a little bit outside of the county, which I thought was a relief, and I wasn't overly panicked. He does have some pre-existing conditions, but today he started to worsen, and they are smelling chlorine over there, and I'm not to date sure if that's related or not.
And for you, do you have asthma, or are these new symptoms? Or
okay. Yeah, I perfectly healthy Sunday before this, or Saturday before this started. All of this has started since then. And I can note that while I was in urgent care, they were busting at the seams with all kinds of people, even though they're saying this would only relate to people with pre-existing conditions. That's not what I'm seeing. That's not, I've been involved in talking a lot with the community, and that's not what I'm hearing. And
I'm going to make a quick guess that local reporters are not by the urgent care talking to people.
No, they're not.
Shocking.
And
go ahead.
If the air is so clean, like they're saying it is, then why did it all of a sudden trigger me and one of my good friends' vehicles, the O2 sensor, and our check engine lights came on?
Very important point, Shena.
Faati, tell me, how far do you live from this normally?
So right now I live in South Fulton, so it's like between the city and the airport, very close to Mercedes Stadium. And I just got over COVID like a couple weeks ago, and was going on my first like outing on Sunday, and then got hit by the smoke when we were out getting groceries in DeKalb County, because my partner, he works over there. And then throughout the week, my symptoms were worsening, and I saw the Georgia poison control number. Like, I've been informing people on my social medias, and so I called the number too. So, you know, I practice what you preach, and they told me to get with my PCP. So Wednesday, I went and saw her, and she said if my symptoms worsen, she said if my symptoms worsen, to go to the ER because they didn't have anything for chlorine gas exposure. So then Thursday, when I woke up, I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if y'all even know this, but they released a PSA saying that Thursday morning, people in Fulton County would see haze and would smell chlorine.
Mm-hmm.
So that morning when I woke up, my symptoms were so severe that I couldn't speak. And we immediately went to the ER, and then my partner, he had to go to work. And like 5 minutes after he left, I stopped breathing. And it was really, really scary. They put me on albuterol. I recently developed asthma because of long COVID, but I've never had a breathing machine treatment, and I've never stopped breathing before. And it was
I want to show Colin, if you have it, I sent it to you. We have the video of you in the hospital, and you're clearly struggling.
Yeah.
If we could show that, Colin. So when you were there, they gave you what, an inhaler?
So they gave me they gave me a steroid shot in the arm, and an X-ray. So I got an X-ray before the breathing machine, which was terrifying because I couldn't breathe, and they were telling me that like after the machine was going, and I started breathing again, the doctor, she was relieved, and she said she was really scared for me because it looked very serious, and I was like, oh, that's even scarier, not the doctor being afraid. And then they told me, she said that 40 people had been in the last 2 days for similar symptoms because of the chlorine smoke in the air. And that when they released me, they gave me a bunch of asthma medication and told me to keep a lookout on my heart rate. So I now have this oxidometer, and my heart rate's been over 100 like every day, like my resting heartbeat. Like if I do it right now, it'll probably say over 100. And yeah, I'm nausea, headaches, I can't sleep, and I bought this gas mask because it's the only thing that works.
You know, I hate to ask a woman, but you're not exactly 90 years old or obese. You're fairly young. So this is not something common.
No,
And
no, I have maybe seasonal allergies now because of long COVID, but I have not ever had an asthma attack before in my life. And my younger sister, she has chronic asthma, and so it wasn't new to me, but experiencing it was new to me. And I the video that you just watched was only a couple of minutes. I recorded 15 minutes straight of like almost throwing up, of not being able to get to any kind of inhale, and I thought that I was gonna die. That's why I recorded that, so that
Wow.
so that people could see what it was like if I did die.
And Scott, not that you're a doctor, but I mean, you know chemicals. Chlorine gas, obviously, the levels that were used in World War I were extremely high and potent. We don't know the full levels that were released. I mean, there has been some reporting that they found it significantly higher than the quote allowed limit. But so I'm not saying this is World War I levels, but at the end of the day, this kind of gas, and we don't even know what other chemicals were created. It could create acute symptoms, but it could also create some long-term effects too.
Correct. And in some ways, this is worse than what they used in World War I, because then it was just chlorine or just phosgene. You've got incomplete combustion products, smoldering burn in all these plastics. So you've got a very toxic mixture of chemicals. And I want to add, this is important. I did reach out to Dr. Beatrice Gollum, who helped our vets with the burn pits. This is why in East Palestine, it's about mixtures of chemicals. And you're going to hear most likely from BioLabs and others that a singular exposure to a singular chemical, those standards are irrelevant when you get to those mixtures. There are no standards for mixtures of chemicals, meaning there's something called synergistic toxicity. Everyone understands that had a migraine, sometimes the aspirin and the caffeine combination gets rid of it, but caffeine alone, aspirin won't. Well, that's a positive thing. Synergistic toxicity is you may be way below exposure limits for a singular exposure to benzene. You may be way below exposure limits for benzoate pyrene. But when all these dioxins and all these cocktails mix together, it's irrelevant what the singular exposure is.
Right. And I want to ask you, Shena, you live 0.3, like less than half a mile away, and I'm seeing that they're doing off-gassing, they're calling it.
Yeah,
I don't know when.
they're not really stating, or they have the roads blocked off. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday or day before yesterday. They did a mandatory evacuation on the other side of the railroad tracks from my house. It was Tuesday.
Wow.
It was Tuesday. It was yesterday. But they didn't exactly tell everybody why. They just said fumes in the air and stuff. That they didn't say anything. And they did the mandatory evacuation and then put the shelter in place still in it. But there's times where you can walk outside and you smell nothing. And then there's times where you walk outside and it hits you in the face.